Mickey Dunder, fastest forensic examiner in the West. I got my bachelor's degree in forensic and investigative sciences at Texas A&M University, and I got my MPS in forensic science at Penn State, and I learned the rest of my expertise on the streets of Manhattan, solving crimes and doing crimes. Wait, I'm reenacting crimes. That's what I mean. I've been employed as one of the best criminalists at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene for 5 years now, just solving crimes day in and day out. Every crime solved is represented by a symbolic item on my living room wall. Currently, 3,302 items are on my wall. I have had to get 17 wall extensions. As for my specialties, I'm a specialist in everything, but if you held a gun to my head like many have and forced me to choose, I'd say fingerprint analysis is some of my best work. When comparing fingerprints, we look at the different unique characteristics of fingerprints known as minutiae, as well as the overall fingerprint pattern. Fingerprints are unique pieces of biometric data that are different in every single person, so by finding a match, there's a statistical certainty that fingerprint actually belongs to that person. And there were several crucial fingerprints found in the crime scene, starting with this one. We have the defendant, Antoine Geyser's left index fingerprint next to the fingerprint found on a hammer covered with Rebecca Smith's blood that was left at the crime scene. To keep things simple, we'll keep each fingerprint comparison to 8 minutiae. As you can see here, there is a perfect match. Both prints have an ulnar loop pattern, and the minutiae match both Antoine Geyser's fingerprints and the fingerprints found on the hammer. Starting from each of their cores, we skip one, and the second ridge is an ending ridge. And past one more ridge is a special scar seen on both patterns. Starting from the core again, going up, we skip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and find an ending ridge. Continuing 1, 2, and there is a dot. From here, we count up 1, 2, and get to a bifurcation. Following that bifurcation down, we find another bifurcation, then move left 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 5th, there is an ending ridge. Speaking of ends, that's the end of this fingerprint comparison. We can conclude that at some point Antoine held the bloody hammer. Moving on. Our lab used the same process to discover a similar match between Antoine Geyser's left thumbprint and the print found on the east side window. Once again, starting from the core, descending down brings us to a long scar represented by the long worm-like gap seen here. Back to the top of the core, we skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and connected to this 4th ridge is a bridge minutia. Crossing the bridge, we move back towards the center and scale up the print. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on the 6th is a bifurcation. Going back down, 1, 2, and to the right is another bifurcation. If we follow the bottom split of the bifurcation, we reach a dot past an ending ridge. Following the same path leads us to a large scar, which warped this section of the print. And that's the last minutia. Since every minutia matches, we could conclude that Antoine touched the East Room's windowsill at some time around the time of the murders. Considering the window was used to either sneak in or out of the house, having the defendant's fingerprints there is suspicious to say the least. I am Officer Monk. The date is November 17th, 1842 at 2:09 p.m. We're at the 108th Precinct of the New York Police Department. This interview is regarding the murder of Alexander and Rebecca Smith. The interviewee is Mary Ann Abbott. Hey, what's up, dude? As the niece of the Smith couple, do you suspect any possible motive for why someone would want to kill them? Well, if you couldn't tell, they are fairly wealthy. If you talk to nearly any townsfolk in Long Island, conversation almost always veers into talking about the Smiths' wealth. So it's not like it's some well-kept secret or anything. But I can't imagine anyone from here wanted to murder my aunt and uncle. Everyone loves them. But now I'm kind of second-guessing that. What were you doing on the night of November 13th, the night of the murders? I left the day before to see my mother and didn't return until Monday. Do you have any witnesses that can corroborate your whereabouts? No, my mother. Just ask my mother. And what is your relation to Anton Geyser? Antoine? Antoine's only been here for about 2 weeks, but I've really taken a liking to him. We both live upstairs in the farmhouse, so we've chatted, we've became friends, and we shared secrets. Do you recall who would be at the Smith farmhouse that night? That night? Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith were definitely there. Those old coots never leave the house. And they were probably having their tea time. I'd imagine Antoine and Henry were there too, though they should have left before it got too dark. Could you tell us a little bit about a certain curious character, Francis Curran? Sure. Francis does his rounds near the farmhouse a few times a week. He's always trying to sell us some peculiar trinkets that he claims can heal all wounds. He's a bit of a loon. You know, we were speaking to Antoine just a moment ago, and he said that he saw you murdering the Smiths. What do you have to say about that? What? Me? I would never murder my family. Just ask my mother. She knows I was with her. Why would Antoine say that? Now you can't hide from us, Marianne. We found your fingerprints at the crime scene. You have some explanation for that? I think my fingerprints would be at the farmhouse. I live there, after all. But I wasn't living there when my poor aunt and uncle were killed. I know that sounds suspicious, but I swear I'm innocent. I apologize for my previous questions. You've been very compliant with us. Now, do you have any inclination of who might have wanted to commit these murders? I don't want to say this, but since he threw me under the bus, Antoine. I think Antoine did it. Antoine was asking me strange questions like where the Smiths held their money. I didn't think much of it, so I gladly told him, but it was an odd question now that I think about it. And final question, why did you choose that week in particular to see your mother? No, I always return to see my mother whenever I'm feeling homesick. My aunt and uncle were great people, but I didn't want to sacrifice me and my mother's relationship. And that's it. Thank you for your cooperation. You can go now. Now, Antoine, I will read you your Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can't be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions. You have the right to have a lawyer with you during questioning. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you have the right to stop answering at any time. Do you understand? Yes. Oh, great. Antoine, how did you meet the deceased? I heard there was farm work in Long Island, so I immediately went there after I was released from Ellis Island. You know, the Smiths, they graciously offered me $4 for a month's worth of work. You know, they gave me shelter. They gave me food, you know, everything I could have wanted. And how was your relationship with them? Were you on good terms? Great, fantastic. I was so happy to slave away for $4. I cannot speak English well, and Mr. Smith mocked me, but Henry helped out with that. And what was your role in the farm? Well, I did chores around the house, breaking my back, keeping the animals well fed. Nothing I wasn't already familiar with. All right. What were you doing on the night of November 13th, the night of the murders? I had tea. I had tea with Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith. And Henry was there too. I took my monthly payment for my work and I left the farm. Where were you after you left the farm? Just walked around Long Island. It's beautiful here. I love America. Do you have anybody that can confirm your alibi? Just ask anyone walking around Long Island that night, near the West End. Now, describe your life throughout your immigration to America. I immigrated from Germany to America in search of a new life. I arrived at Ellis Island in July, but was held there for a few months because of some illness. Horrible people. And was the amount the Smiths paid satisfactory? Yes, it was plenty. $4 a month is plenty. I was barely paid at all in Germany. I'm just happy to be here. Antoine, I won't sugarcoat it. Your fingerprints were found on a bloody hammer containing Rebecca Smith's blood. Care to explain? Fingerprints? Pardon? I've never even heard of that. What is that, the devil's work? Well, the broken east side window had your fingerprints, blood, and footprints all over it, all around it, everywhere. So why did you break into the house? No, I don't break into anyone's house. I respect the Smiths. They give me money, food, and shelter. Okay, Antoine. That'll be all. Today is November 14th. We are at the Smith farmhouse here to perform a police walkthrough. Starting with the outside of the house, we come to the east side where we see a window with a pane cracked open as well as scuff marks on the windowsill and on the window itself. The window is also slightly ajar. There also appears to be some sort of shelter or storage behind this wooden door here. There's also a footprint on top of it and a used axe to the right of it. Coming around to the back of the east side of the Smith farmhouse, we see a shed, as well as the various farm animals that inhabit this area. There's 2 or possibly even 3 footprints walking towards the shed. There is a shovel standing straight up next to the window. There is a door with a latch slightly opened, and there is some tool, a pickaxe of some sorts, to the right of the shed. Several panes are missing from the shed window, and the shed itself looks fairly dilapidated. Coming to the front of the house, we see various sizes and shapes of footprints embedded into the dirt. There's what it seems to be 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even a 5th footprint in the dirt path alone. There's also at least 1 drop of blood that I can see currently on the porch. Coming into the house, we see the entryway. Nothing is amiss here. But if we head towards the left, now in the parlor, everything seems to be in order here. But now if we take a little look at the bottom of the parlor here, the floor, there's a bloody hammer that is leaking blood across the floorboards. Back to the entryway, we can head towards the east side of the house once more. 2 bodies are located in the front room, one including Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith. Signs of struggle all over. Every chair is knocked over. There seems to be a tea table with tea on top. Several cast-off patterns of blood are casted onto the north wall. Taking a closer look at the 2 victims, we see that what we presume to be Mr. Smith is burned all the way up to his mid-chest region, and his face has several blood and scuff marks located on the top and around it. Coming to Mrs. Smith's body, we see that she is laying prone on the ground. Her back is completely drenched with blood, as well as a few blood patterns and stains on her head, and some wounds located on the head. Coming to the east room, we see the window that is open ajar, but nothing else in the room seems to be incredibly amiss. The money chest appears to have 1 drop of blood, and what also could be scuff marks or signs of fingerprints on top. Broken glass also lays next to the window from what we could presume came from the broken pane. There's also 1 single drop of blood we have a better view of that is located on the windowsill. Now heading towards the north, we reach the dining room, and nothing appears to be out of order in here. The table is set as if nothing happened. No windows are broken or open. Now in Mrs. Smith's bedroom, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong in this room either. And that marks the end of this lovely police walkthrough. Antoine Geisler's motive was to steal the Smith family's vast wealth for himself. The defendant had the means to commit this crime, as he had access to a hammer to break through the east room window and kill both victims. And finally, the defendant had the opportunity to murder, since Mary Ann Abbott left town and Henry Bauer adjourned after the afternoon tea time to his nearby residence, leaving only the defendant and both victims at the farmhouse. I believe Antoine Geisler is guilty for murdering Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith. His sentence will be a minimum of 25 years in prison.